Okay, so we have looked at how we can do some basic programming. Last lesson we were trying to put some values into our program, and we learned that Python actually stores these in variables. In fact, all programming languages, every time you type something in, any input is stored as a variable. Now, what actually goes on in the computer is that a certain amount of memory has to be allocated for particular variables. So the computer needs to know what type of data the variable is going to store so that it can actually allocate the right amount of memory. So there are different types of data. There is string data type. This means any keyboard character, so a letter, a number, a symbol, anything that you would type in could be classed as a string data type. Now, when the computer prepares the memory, it will prepare quite a large amount of memory for any string variable. If we know that the variable is only going to hold a whole number, so an integer, we need to tell the program that, so that the computer can just allocate a small amount of memory and therefore work more efficiently. If we know that it's going to hold a decimal number, that's known as a real number, a real data type, we'd need to tell the computer that. And if our variable is going to hold the value of either being true or false, then we need to declare our variable as a boolean. And if it's going to hold just a single character, just one letter or one digit, we might then declare our variable as a character. So what we need to do is we need to realize the importance of actually declaring data types when we're doing our programming, because what we're going to do now is a little bit of arithmetic. So we're going to do some maths in Python, and for maths to happen we must make sure that any variable that's going to hold a number is declared as an integer, otherwise Python won't be able to actually do the maths properly. Okay, so let's get into PyScripter, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a really simple bit of maths. I'm going to create a variable called number 1, and I'm then going to type an input statement, and I'm going to ask the user to type in their first value. So type in your first number, like so. And then I'm going to create another variable called number 2, and again type in your second number. Now, the logic involved in doing the maths might be that we create a third variable called answer, and I say that answer equals number 1 plus number 2. And then I might want to print the value of answer onto the screen, and of course I don't want my program to close, so I'll put an input statement down here. Now, I was just talking about the importance of actually telling Python what type of data a variable is actually going to hold. Now, I said that if you are trying to do maths, then Python must realize that the variable is holding numbers, otherwise this won't actually work. It won't be able to do the addition. Every time any input is put into a variable in Python, it is first of all stored as a string data type. Python will assume that there's a mixture of letters, numbers and symbols in that variable, and it'll allocate a lot of space on the memory to hold that data. So if I was to run this now, because the variables at the moment are of data type string, this addition probably won't work. Let's have a look to see what happens. External run. Okay, so type in your first number, 4, type in my second number, 6, and we've got 46. Okay, so it's not actually worked. What it's done is it's recognized that variable 1 is of a string data type, so it's just thinking of it as text, if you like, and the same with number 2, so that when we actually add these two, all it's doing is it's joining the first bit of text with the second bit of text, because of course 4 plus 6 isn't 46, it's 10. So if I want this to work, then I need to make sure that I declare it as a proper data type, of an integer data type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I want number 1 to be of integer. So what it's doing is it's taking the value of number 1, and I'm running the integer function on it which basically just tells Python that this value is going to be an integer, and then it puts it back into variable num1. So variable number 1 is now of integer data type. I'll do the same here with number 2. Okay, so number 2 equals int number 2. So now when I run this, okay, let's see what happens. I do 4 and it doesn't work. That's because I didn't type the right name for variable 1. Okay, so let's try that now. External run 4, 6, and the answer is 10. So now that Python recognizes that the contents of this variable and this variable here is going to be an integer, is going to be a whole number, it can actually do the maths for me. So let's see if that will now work if I want to subtract two numbers. Let's run that. Okay, so let's start with 10, and I'm going to take away from it 3, and the answer is 7. It's perfect. Okay, and we can obviously do the other operators. If we use a star, okay, so shift 8 will give us a star. If I now run that and I do 4 and 4, the answer is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. And of course I could do a divide by using the /. So if I go external run and I go 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Okay. Now because I've been using integers for the two variables, input variables, number 1 and number 2, and because obviously the maths is working with two integers, the answer, variable answer, will automatically be set as an integer data type accordingly. Okay, so therefore that's why in that last one you saw that it declared it as a decimal. In fact, it was declared as a floating number. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that's the basics of doing arithmetic. We must make sure that we declare our variable as an appropriate data type. So if we're going to be typing in a number, we need to tell Python that it's going to be a number stored in our variable, and to do that we would use the int function. Okay, so we're actually making sure that the variable which contained a string is being converted into an integer. And there's a quicker way of doing that as well. So instead of having two lines of code there, we could actually do it all in one go. We could go int, and then obviously close the bracket there, int, close the bracket there. So this function is being applied immediately onto whatever input is given. So now again, if I run it, let's see if it works. In fact, let's make it a nice simple addition. Run, external run, 50 plus 3 is 53. Okay, so have a go at a few tasks involving simple arithmetic, making sure that you use the int function if you are going to be inputting numbers into your program so that you can actually do the arithmetic properly.